Today's guest is an ethical hacker who hunts down child predators.
If somebody has an illness or sickness, they're attracted to little boys or little girls, the only solution to that is to end them.
At just 9 years old, he began exploring the world of computers and quickly became a self-taught prodigy.
I didn't get into hacking just to buy drugs. I got into hacking because I was in the communities, and then I was fascinated with computers already. I used the hacking abilities to fund the drug addiction.
He now uses his unique skill set to expose criminals online, infiltrate their secret networks, and protect the public from those with evil intentions. How many predators have you sent to prison?
I don't know an exact number on that one, but a lot.
In this episode, we'll uncover his journey from young tech enthusiast to a leading figure in cybersecurity, the devastating ways hackers can exploit vulnerabilities, and how he turned his battle with addiction into a relentless pursuit of justice. Ryan Montgomery. Welcome to the Jack Neel Podcast.
Hey, how you doing, Jack?
Yeah. So Ryan, you're an ethical hacker with access to some of the darkest parts of the internet. What was the moment that made you focus on catching predators?
So going back to the story that I've told many times, I got a text message from my friend's wife with two horrible screenshots they're not illegal screenshots, but they're very disgusting. And one of them included a child in a bathtub where you could see their back and you could tell that they were naked. And the title of this post on this horrible website that she sent me was, they have no idea what's going to happen to them tonight. Meaning like what this dad, I'm assuming dad, was going to do to the child. And then underneath of it, there were people saying what they were going to do to this person's child, which, obviously broke my heart and was disgusting, something I've never seen before in my life. And there were other screenshots. I believe it was one or two. I have to go through the text. I'll show it to you. I was at a friend's house. I left. And my goal was to just take this website down because it was on the clear web. It wasn't on like what people consider the dark web or Tor, the onion router. It was on the regular internet for anyone to access and read and view this content. And I thought, well, the easiest possible thing I could do is a denial of service attack or distributed denial of service attack, which just means
DDoS.
A DDoS, yeah, just shut the site down. And if that's all I could accomplish, I'd be happy with just doing that because I'm taking the site down, making some sort of an impact and doing something. And I don't know, what in me had me want to leave where I was at to go do that, but I literally left that person's house. I went home with the goal in mind to just DDoS the site. Skipping all of the technical details because I was told after a couple other podcasts to not get too deep into how I did this, but I exfiltrated all of the data. The user data, meaning like the usernames, the emails, the private messages, the threads, all of the text-based content on the website, and I made sure to redact or not include or exclude the photos or attachments on the site. So I was in possession of all of this user data from this extremely graphic, horrible website, and I had no illegal content that would be considered. Am I allowed to say it on this show?
Yeah, you go for it. We'll pick it out.
Material.
Okay.
So before I say some words, I might just clarify with you because I don't know what TikTok or any other platform is okay with. They can get a little touchy with these topics, but I wanted to make sure that when I downloaded that database that there was no material. And, a lot of people call it. And in my opinion, and going back to the story in a second, but in my opinion, when I hear the word I feel like when you say the word pornography, you imply in some ways consent. And I don't think a child can consent. I know it's just a word, but I like to call it and I think that's a better way of putting it after, being in this field for all the years I've been in it now. But that was the beginning of when I got started in the field. Going a little deeper into that story, the person that was running this website, which, like I said, I'll show you some stuff in a second. The person that was running this website was the first user in the database. You could tell based upon the output, of that database that he was the administrator. He had more permissions than other users, and he used a Gmail address to sign up. And I'm thinking, there's no way that the administrator of a website that's talking about the worst stuff you can imagine would use their real Gmail address to run this thing. That's just what I was thinking at the time. But doing some digging, and the guy's name was Nathan Larson. I was digging into him. He was a politician that ran for Congress twice in Virginia. And, I'm not some politics guy. I'm not a conspiracy guy. I'm none of these things. But I just happened to stumble upon a politician, a crazy politician, by even prior to seeing this website, just looking into his previous life, he's got some really interesting past. That's weird beliefs. That's for
What
other
kind of
words.
things?
Like white supremacy. He made an official statement as a politician that he believes that should be legal. Horrible things. This guy stood for it prior to this website being exposed. But at the time, nobody knew that he was running this website. Somehow, some way, he was a politician in Virginia. And so after extracting all of that data, I had at the time I believed it was 3,000 users on the site. What I realized later on, after going through a ton of investigation with a journalist group, which I'll get to that in a second, I realized there were 7,000 users in that database because there were these backups that were on the server that I never loaded those backups in, and I realized there were 7,000 users on the site instead of 3.
What do you mean by backups?
So you can use tools like, for example, MySQL dump, which is a way to dump data out of your database and store it into a file. And maybe you want to store it as a CSV file, like a Excel document.
Yeah.
Or maybe you just want a .SQL file, just so later on you can rebuild that database with whatever was in your database. So there were a total of 4 files that were just from prior backups, and I just assumed at first glance, without going into them, that was just backups of previous websites. When the investigative journalist group and I started digging into it, we found out that it wasn't just old websites, because I'm kind of jumping all over the place here, but he had these other websites before that I didn't know about. Like I said, I never even got involved in this industry or knew anything about these horrible websites until I saw these screenshots. So when I started seeing these other websites, like something about incels and weird names like that, I wasn't familiar with those terms at that point. And he ran some site about incels, which means involuntarily celibate.
Yeah.
And that could mean many things. It could mean you're just too ugly to get a girl. It could mean that you have a fantasy that is not realistic. Like maybe you're attracted to cars, or maybe I guess you could do something with a car. Who knows? But it's just something like something, or let's just say for just like a mental image. Let's say somebody's attracted to dogs. Unless they want to break the law and do something disgusting, they're not going to, do something like that with a dog. So they're involuntarily celibate. In this case, they want to do something with children. And there are people that have these fantasies and don't act upon them. And then there are people that have these fantasies and they do act upon them. Well, skipping a lot of the details, which I mean, I'm sure you'll have questions because, like I said, I'm all over the place. This politician that was running the website gets arrested 6 months later in Denver, Colorado, with a 12-year-old girl that he kidnapped. And I, at that point, after I didn't explain what I did, but I reported all of this data that I found to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which the acronym NCMEC is how people call it in this field. But I reported it to them first. Then I went to my attorney in Florida. He reports it to a local task force. And then I called an attorney in Virginia because I didn't really know what to do at this point. That's where that politician was. And it was a woman. She didn't know what to do. So then I was like, okay, well, let me go to the media, because there's a change.org petition about this website where there's over 100,000 signatures to get it taken down. So maybe just talking to the media.
The website you hacked into was rapey.co.
Yeah,
right?
so there was
the name of it?
Yes, and he had a couple mirrors of it as well, but essentially all the same website. So reporting that, there was like I said, change.org, that you could probably still find the petition now. There were a lot of people that wanted the site down, but not everybody knows about it. Not everybody knew that website existed, including myself. I get a screenshot, first time I ever heard of it or saw it. And, I think, okay, let me reach out to the media and see what happens. So I talked to a bunch of news reporters, or, just reaching out through the general ways to contact them through their websites, or going to an article where they've talked about something child safety related before, seeing an email or a social media profile, click it, get in contact with them. Every one of them, and the total number is 11. I have it timestamped. I have notes of exactly everything that I did. All 11 of these reporters were excited to run the story. Like, they wanted to run it. They wanted details from me. They wanted me to send, little bits of information. They all wanted to run it. It was almost like a done deal with every conversation that I had. And all of them came back with exactly the same answer, that their legal team was not willing to run it for, various reasons, but mostly liability. And I said, my rebuttal to that was, okay, well then let's not have any legal risk or liability. Let's just let people know that the site exists, because there's also people that are claiming to be children on this website that are selling their bodies to these weirdos. So just let parents know the site exists on the clear web, and that way they can maybe monitor their kids' devices, whatever the case is, whatever they're going to run the story on. But none of them ran it anyway. And then going back to what I just said, Nathan at that point, it was 6 months after I already reported all of that information. Nathan at that point already kidnapped and the 12-year-old and was caught. Like, if he lives in Virginia on this side of the country, gets arrested in Denver, Colorado on the other side of the country, he took a 12-year-old from their family and got caught at an airport. But guess what? In all of those articles, not one of them mentioned his websites. So no action was ever taken on that until years later. I partner with a friend of mine who's a professional MMA fighter. We're sitting in my friend's garage, and I was, talking to him somewhat about this story, but in general, just how bad this situation actually is. And, I was like, I could show you. So I pull up this teen chat website, which is what my kind of go-to when I'm trying to show somebody if they want to know, because I don't have to create an Instagram account or a TikTok or any other platform where I'm decoying as a child, which, I don't want to decoy in the first place, but just, it takes time to create a fake social media profile and then have these guys reach out. So the easiest solution for me was to, just Google search teen chat. There's a guest button on all of these. There's a ton of these teen chat websites. Hit the guest button, name myself Ashley 13, female, whatever state, which is like something old school ASL. I don't know if it's even done anymore, but age, sex, location. That used to be what everybody said, as like after you said hi, they'd say ASL. Yeah. So I made my username Ashley 13, female, Florida in this case, and or FL. And the chat would just blow up with private messages, ding, 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 ding. And inside of them, there'd be a couple actual teenagers in a teen chat as expected. But, quite a lot of them were, grown adults, not just, and 18 is bad, but some of them, 30, 40, 50-year-olds that want to talk to what they believe is a 13-year-old girl. He sees this, like my friend Scrappy, he's a pro MMA fighter, never seen anything like this in his life either. And I was like, well, we could actually start catching them right now. So like, if you want to do this, like, he fights, his entire job is training at the gym, preparing for fights. He has the availability, to just dip out of the gym and go on a catch is what it would be called at any time. So we decide, okay, we're going to do this together. He's going to be the face of it. And because think of it like this, MMA fighter versus is just an attractive title that people would want to click on. It's the internet. It's all about what clickbait, and people want to, that's an attractive title. And not only will it be something that people will watch, but him and I both have passion for it. We want to help. And he's a guy who has a big heart.
You have to market it as well for it to be successful.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, but him being a marketed, he was on the Ultimate Fighter reality show. He's already a known person. These podcasts start reaching out to him because they want to know, like, hey, why are you catching predators and why? Let me know the whole story. And he brings me along on these podcasts so that I can answer the more technical questions, like how do you investigate them and what is the laws that are surrounding these specific these cases. And I went on a relatively small podcast. I think it was only a couple hundred, if not 1,000 followers at the time. And we did some bigger ones, but that was one of the smaller ones. They're bigger now. But I went on there and they asked me the question that you just asked me, how did you get started? But they were directing it at me, not at him. And, this was supposed to be about him. I just happened to be there. And I answered the question and I ended it by saying, I reported everything. I did all of, I reached out to the media. I tried everything I possibly could and nothing's happened. So from there, that clip goes up on Instagram and I see it gets almost 10 million views in one night on this small Instagram channel. And I'm getting blown up. My inbox is absolutely flooded with people that want to talk about this story, which I was getting the opposite response from the major media in the past. And I couldn't tell you why, but that's, I was getting, other than the liability that the lawyers were saying they weren't willing to run it. So I reached out to, I didn't reach out. They reached out to me, Project Veritas, which I'm not, like I said, I'm not a political guy, so I didn't understand their political, beliefs or any of the drama going on with their group at the time, but they did have quite a bit, and I didn't know anything about it, nor did I really care. I just wanted a group that was interested in helping and wanted to get the message out there. I saw they had 1 million followers on, I believe it was Instagram.
What are their political beliefs?
I think that they're like right-wing type, people. That's what they're portrayed to be. But at the time, the drama was their CEO was James O'Keefe. James O'Keefe either left or got fired. That's kind of up for debate. Nobody really knows. But for me, I didn't even know who James O'Keefe was. I just knew they were investigative journalists, and I wanted somebody to help me to get this database, to have some sort of justice. And they were the ones that did it. So within 24 hours after this one clip goes viral, Project Veritas shows up, and they want to go through the data. They take the data from me. I sign some documents. They go back to New York is where they're based, and we're going back and forth on a chat application, and we're investigating each individual person in these databases, which I just call the database, but in these multiple databases from this one, exfiltration, for other words.
Yeah.
And
these users, I hate to stop you, but what did they look like? Like, were there other politicians? Like, what was the common age demographics? Any job similarities?
So there wasn't a job similarity, but there definitely was, from like 30 to 50 was the age bracket.
Mostly male?
Yeah, but there was quite a lot of females.
Really?
Which we even have a video when I was working with Project Veritas on it. We have a video of us confronting a female that was on the website who claims she found it in a Facebook group and that she just was trying to shut it down or something. I forget all the words she said. You'd have to look at their video on it, but it was odd because usually females are not the ones that go out and try to meet with children, but I guess a lot of them like to fantasize about it online, which is just a weird thing, but it seems to be the case. Well, while we're investigating these users, there's like I said, 7,000 users, and we get to about 500 of them that we are 100% sure that we know are the people behind that username and that email address. And we find out from that 12 of the 500 have been charged with a crime against a child after I reported it to NCMEC and the media. So I believe that there's many more cases that we don't know about. And like I said, that's 500 of the 7,000 that we got to before Project Veritas shut the story down, which I can explain why that happened in a second. But I believe there will be a lot more cases, number one, that haven't been caught, and number two, that there's 6,500 other people that at that time were not looked further into.
You said there were multiple cases that happened after you found this data?
Yeah, after I exfiltrated the data.
So they weren't before. Like, you didn't look into their criminal history and they happened before. It happened after.
It happened after it was reported. Yeah. So it could have been prevented is what I'm getting at. Yeah. Okay. So why they shut it down? Because of their owner, James O'Keefe, either leaving or getting fired. Nobody knows the true answer to that one, at least right now. I don't know the guy, nor did I ever care. Like I said, I wanted a journalist group to do it. They brought in an interim CEO named Hannah Giles, which I don't know her either, but she gets on the phone with me in the middle of this investigation where all of their journalists are like super motivated. They're all pumped up. Everybody's working as a team on trying to investigate as many of these people as possible. And I can't speak on their business because I don't know all the financials. I don't know their situation at that time. But their CEO got on the phone, and her biggest concern was, she said, this is that she didn't want to run the story anymore because it was not a tidal wave, like TIDAL wave, like not a TITLE, like a tidal wave, and then it got shut down. It was done. It was dead in the water, for other words. But the journalists at Project Veritas all reached out to me individually saying like, hey, let's keep doing this. I would love to keep doing it. But when you don't have the equipment, you don't have the spy cameras, you don't have the budget to be flying around to meet these individuals and confronting them with cameras, like as much as they wanted to help, they just didn't have the resources to do it. So that had to stop. In that process, then, this is supposed to line up to where Project Veritas releases this bombshell situation, which I didn't get into this, and I want to get into it as well, that the Nathaniel Larson guy, Nathan Larson, the politician, the website was hosted by Frederick Nij, one of the co-founders of the Pirate Bay. So I have messages from him, which is also on Project Veritas' page.
The Pirate Bay?
The Pirate Bay, yeah.
What's the Pirate Bay?
So the Pirate Bay is a very popular torrent site from back when I was younger. It still exists current day, I believe, where you could download movies, music, and videos, and software where other people are. It's a piracy website, but it's like an infamous piracy website. So for one of the three owners who a lot of people have respect for, especially in like the hacking community, for one of them to host a website like that, and to and I have messages where he says that he got a report from whatever company reported it or whatever agency reported it. He replies to Nathan. I have the private message. It says he says, I reviewed this site. It looks like troll comments and holiday photos of children, meaning like vacation in other countries. So I can't understand how somebody like Nathan, I can't understand like somebody like Frederick goes through this website and says this is troll content and holiday photos of children. And I'm going to show you why in a second so you understand why that makes absolutely no sense. But nobody's ever asked Frederick, like, hey, why did you host this site? Why did you allow it to stay on your servers after you reviewed it and you were helping him troubleshoot it? And there's screenshots of those messages online that you can find. Why did nobody say a word to Frederick? Like, still current day, nobody said a word to the guy. Let me pull up these, just something so you can get an idea of why I even acted on this in the first place. Because I think that's kind of important. I mean, here's one of the original screenshots right here.
Okay. JB Pill says, who wants to these little? And then there's a reply. I've got first dibs on the little in the middle. At Joseph Fritzl, at Maximilian von Auschwitz. Pick a whore for yourselves. And then it's a photo of little girls and like bikinis and such. Jesus, man.
That's just one. I mean, I can show you more, but is that...
Show me some more.
Can you... While seeing that horrible screenshot, this is the first, like, this is what got, flipped the switch in my brain why I wanted to take this site down. Which, like I said, not that screenshot. The bathtub one was the one that they all are disgusting, but that was just one example. But does that to you appear to be troll content or holiday photos or vacation photos of children? No.
Yeah.
So I would like to know what Frederick has to say. This one, so like I said, there were people on there that were children that were selling themselves to adults. And the reason I can confirm that without doubt is because when we started to investigate it, it was more than 2 years after I originally exfiltrated the data. Some of the users that we were identifying, the 500 of the 7,000 with Project Veritas at least, were now 18, 19 years old. So that tells me they were children at the time because, of their age when we started to look it up. But some of the users, and including this one that you can read if you want, they're pretending to be a 16-year-old, and just read what they had to say here.
God, I really want to be a mom. I need someone who wants to my little 16-year-old. When I have our daughter, I'd let you do whatever you wanted from whatever age. Make me watch as you her, making her scream, or if you prefer to gently her, teaching her how to lovingly suck on your. Don't worry if it's a boy, you can watch me our little boy off, teaching him how to properly a woman. Teaching him how to slap and hurt me to face me. He'd be so cute trying to face me hard, but barely pushing because he's so little. So this was confirmed to be like...
That's an adult.
That's an adult. And they're pretending to be a child.
But there were many children on this website. Yeah. I'm saying many with only at this time that the public knows about 500 being confirmed. I only know what I'm trying to say is that more has been done with the database. I just am not allowed to talk about that anymore. But 500 of them I can because it was with a journalist group who also has that data. But that was not a child. But there were many children on this website for real, which, there are, that's not the only website that exists. There's still websites out there just like that and worse.
On the clear web.
I'm sure on the clear web. I don't know any off the top of my head right now, but plenty on Tor, on the dark web. So, it's really disgusting to me. And I don't know. I mean, that's kind of what ignited my passion into doing what I'm doing. And going back to the story with Scrappy or Dustin, the MMA fighter, we decided, well, because at that moment when they did nothing about it at the time, I'm thinking that I feel like these children were being failed by the media. They're being failed by the authorities. Nobody wants to take this seriously. Like, what can I do about this, right? Well, years before I even talked to the Scrappy, the MMA fighter, about catching them locally, I found these YouTube groups that were catching them online. And nowadays, like, anybody that's watching this video, they're gonna think, predator catchers. They've seen video after video of that recently in the last couple of years. Well, this was not popular back then. There were only a few people that were doing it, and like in total, it wasn't like all of your favorite content creators were catching predators. It just wasn't a thing at this time. Yeah. This is 5 years ago, approximately, and I reach out to all of the channels that I could. They had a relatively small following, except for one or two. And I said, hey, well, I watch a lot of your videos and I see you're confronting these people and you don't know anything but their username and that's it. You don't know where they live. You don't know where they work. You don't know anything about them. I'd be happy to take your chat logs between the decoy and this predator, and I will, I'll send you a full case file on the person as long as I can find out who they are. So I would, who's going to say no to that? I don't want my name in the video. I don't want credit in the description. I just want to help out for free, volunteer, and nobody needs to know that I'm doing it. So, a lot of them agreed to allowing me to do that. And for a couple of years, I did that until that one conversation with Dustin. And then we were like, okay, well, let's start a group around here, and we're going to catch them locally. I'll start finding them for us. I'll pay the decoys, out of my own pocket. And I'll pay the video editor because I suck with video editing, and you just, you catch them, you read the chat logs, and of course he was reading all, he was as involved as he possibly could be leading up to these catches, but some of the stuff like open source intelligence just wasn't something he was interested in, which I understand, but long story short, we end up, both of us actually, the first night that we decided to do it, both of us go on Grindr. And nothing against gay people or anything like that, but Grindr is just an app where people meet very fast. And not only do people want to meet within minutes, but it tells you like this person is 10 feet away from you or 50 feet away from you. Like it's a pretty transparent app for hookups. And so Dustin and I download that app and we use an app to make ourselves look younger. So we look like kids. I actually still have the decoy photos on my phone. And we were telling people that we were teenagers. A guy eventually does want to meet up, and he basically says...
how long did it take to find
Not even an hour. Not even an hour on Grindr. The guy wanted to meet, and he wanted to meet in a busy area. It's Atlantic Ave and Delray Beach, which is it's kind of like meeting on Hollywood Boulevard. Yeah, he wanted to meet in public.
Oh my gosh, okay.
And with what he believed to be a child. And we go out, we go and meet this guy, and... This is his and my first time ever confronting a predator face to face. I've done many of these from behind a computer screen, but not where I'm holding a camera in my hand or a phone in my hand. And in his first time ever confronting somebody with some pretty bad chat logs, like, hey, what were you here to do, man? This is really disgusting. What were your intentions with this child? And the guy, as soon as we say his name and personal details about his life, he starts walking really fast, and I'm following him. And I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, like, this man was here to meet with blah, 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 blah. And, here to meet with a child. And I'm embarrassing the crap out of him in public. He starts walking into restaurants. The way Atlantic Ave is, there's like club, bar, restaurant, club, bar. It's just, a very busy area. So he's walking into a restaurant and then walking out the other door. And I'm just making a huge scene. And it's like the least professional thing you can imagine. But it's our first time ever doing it. And I was pissed off. It just, this stuff... it should piss you off, but I was pissed off, and so was Dustin. I was just being a little louder than him. And eventually he makes it into this one restaurant, and he goes into the bathroom, which was, if you want to say smart, it was the smartest thing he could have done, because I can't record him in the bathroom. And, he just waited for the cops to get there. So the cops got there. They didn't know what to do because it's considered vigilante justice, and none of the evidence that was gathered is considered... at least in that specific case, it wasn't considered evidence. So the cops...
Why was it not considered evidence?
So it wasn't collected by the police. So they consider it vigilante. Like, if the decoy, for example, was a police officer, that's evidence. But the decoy was somebody that I was paying, or two different people that I was paying out of state, and they were not officers. So whatever the laws are on that, it's considered vigilante justice. And I'm waiting outside. This guy's just scared in the bathroom, and the cops finally get him out of the bathroom. I record him coming out. The cops let him go, and that was it. So that was our first catch, which, was a little bit of a mess, but we did it. And then we came up with a better plan for the next time. Like, let's do this at a Walmart or do it at a place where, we have a plan in place and they don't have anywhere to really run other than to their cars. And in that case, we're just going to get their license plate. And if the cops don't get there in time. Well, you see a lot of these people now doing in catches where they make fun of them or make them do like weird things and stuff, but they try to do that for the content. The reason we were trying to do it, the original goal was, hey, do 20 push-ups or 20 sit-ups while saying, I'm here to meet with whoever, or this year-old person, or I'm never going to talk to a child again, and do it, this many times. It's just a diversion tactic, waiting for the police to show up. And we told these guys, every single one of them, that if you tell us, we're not going to tell your wife, we're not going to tell your job, we're not going to tell your family, we're not going to call the police. You talk to us, you can go home, no problem. Which we can't tell them that they're there against their will, but we can make them feel a little bit intimidated because they know their whole life is on the line because of a mistake, or I don't even know if you want to call it a mistake, but an action that they made. And a lot of them, they would sit there and do the push-ups and sit-ups, and you can find those videos online if you look for them. The group's called 561 PC, which stands for 561 Predator Catchers. Dustin has caught a ton of them since I'm no longer involved with 561 PC, not because of any fallout or any negativity. It was that I got involved with an organization called Sentinel Foundation, which is a nonprofit that is full of Green Berets and Delta Force operators and Homeland Security, all kinds of different federal agencies, retired and working in parallel with federal law enforcement. And they said to me, they were like, hey, if you want to make an impact and do the counter human trafficking side of things, or you want to work on the violence against children side on a bigger scale, and try to get more convictions, you're going to have to stop doing the vigilante stuff because it will discredit you in court. And then I never got in that situation, so I don't know exactly how that would have played out. But I was told by two different people that were non-biased, basically, where they weren't associated with Sentinel Foundation. I was just told not to do it. And I had a conversation with Dustin, as hard as it was, because we started that thing together. I was like, look, man, we're in the same fight. We're just doing it in different ways. And you're going to be a lot more public about it than I am. I'm not going to be posting me catching these predators in other countries and shutting these websites down publicly. But, you could still do everything you're doing. And he's killing it. He's doing such a great job on his own. It had nothing to do with me. He just has that charismatic, really intelligent person when it comes to making content, but then also the heart to want to go after these guys. And he figured it all out on his own without my help, including the investigative part. So, props to him on that. And then, for myself, it's, I'm not on video anymore, catching these guys. People aren't seeing a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, but that was never my goal in the first place. Yeah. My goal in the first place was to just do something about it.
Ryan, how many predators have you sent to prison?
I don't know an exact number on that one, but a lot. Quite a lot.
Hundreds, thousands?
I would say hundreds, not thousands.
Hundreds?
Yeah. I'm hoping for tens or hundreds of thousands, but I would say hundreds.
Have you gotten anyone like the death penalty?
As of right now, no.
You said once that you don't believe there's a cure to you believe it's only the death penalty. Can you kind of explain your take on that?
I mean, yeah, I think it kind of speaks for itself. Yeah. I think that if somebody has an illness or sickness, if they want to call it that, where they're attracted to little boys or little girls and they know it's going to traumatize them for the rest of their life or even physically harm them, I feel like the only solution to that is to end them. And I'll give you a reason for that as well, outside of just anger and passion. Here's a logistical reason, because 1 in 4 girls are sexually abused in their lifetime. 1 in 20 boys are sexually abused. That's a fact that anybody can look up, prove those statistics. That's what we know. That's what's reported. So if that's the case, and let's just say a very large number of people that were abused end up offending later in life. I don't know if you know that, but a lot of them end up offending, unfortunately, later in life. Cycle. It's a cycle. What happens after a couple generations? That number goes from 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 20 boys to 1 in 2 girls and 1 in 10 guys. And then where do we stop the issue? We have to eradicate it completely. We have to get rid of it. And that's why a more logical answer to the death penalty is get rid of them so they don't become a bigger issue than they already are, which is a humongous issue. So that's why I feel that way. And also, just to end that off, just seeing the worst of the worst stuff every single day, seeing the worst in the world. And as you asked, the demographic where, Is there an age? Is there a look? Is there a face or a job? Like, no, it could be anyone. It could be, you would have no clue just looking at somebody or having a conversation with somebody, other than some common grooming signs and stuff like that when they're in that interaction with children. No, they don't have a face. Like these people are evil and they're everywhere. And, it breaks my heart, and it aggravates me to even talk about. So I apologize if I'm all over the place.
Totally fun. I used to do a lot of crime videos about crimes against children, and that was like the one topic I would hate doing because like it's more emotional than crimes against adults for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Since the Sean Ryan podcast, and I've seen you on the Patrick Bet David one and PBD's friend as well, but those podcasts didn't give me like a clear picture of kind of what you're doing now. So like, what is the current mission? Like what's kind of changed since you went on Sean Ryan's?
So what's changed is now I have connections with a lot of government agencies that I had no way of communicating with before. I have, organizations like Sentinel Foundation and others that do similar things, where if I am submitted a case or I find something, I can do something about it, not just report it and hope for the best. And then doing stuff with Sentinel Foundation and another organization I cannot name, I'm able to do a lot more now. So it's just, that's the best thing that's came from it is being able to actually do something. Whereas before it was just, I could provide information and people could confront one guy at a time, but that was it. That was as far as it could go, which I believe has impact. I don't think that is meaningless, but I prefer to do what I'm doing now, which as much as I would love to explain that in detail to you, I just can't.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you can talk about this, but during the Project Veritas time period, you said you reached out to Candace Owens.
So I reached out to Candace Owens and Ronan Farrow, but at that time, I also didn't, like right now I have 1 million followers on Instagram, 1 million something plus on TikTok, 500,000 on YouTube. I didn't realize what it was like to have 1 million followers on platforms and what your inbox looks like. And especially doing what I do, there's a lot of people that reach out to me that have issues with cybersecurity or issues with, they're looking for a person that the police couldn't help them with, that hurt their child or hurt them as a kid. And they come to me with these questions, and I'm only one person. I can only do so much. As much as I want to help every single person, I can't. It's just not realistic. Well, when I made those comments about Candace and Ronan, I guess I would say the word would be uneducated. Like I didn't realize what they had to go through on a daily basis when it came to people messaging, asking for things.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that they just didn't see my message.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that. And then in my brain, I'm thinking like Candace could have definitely done something about this, or Ronan, he could have definitely done something about this. So I don't have any hard feelings. It's, Candace was just at an event that I was at, but she's probably a great girl, great woman. I have no idea. I just, I never had a conversation one-on-one with her, but we were in the same room a couple weeks ago. And then we're on the same app together where we Connect, and we answer questions from people. So we're going to intersect at some point, and I'll I want to ask what if she did see the message or not, but I don't think that she did. So I need to kind of just let that one go, I think.
Yeah.
But I can confirm the other stuff. I mean the police, the task force, the NCMEC, and all the other agencies that ignored me completely. That's undisputed. I don't have a better answer other than I know that things take time in law enforcement, whereas before I didn't realize. I was fully expecting them to come kick my door down, take my computers, or at least knock on my door, take my computers, investigate the data that I had, which I had nicely timed up for them so they knew every detail of everything that I did, so that, so I could protect myself in the process, but also make their job easier on getting some convictions. Knowing what I know now, it just takes time for that to happen, and I was being unrealistic. But I don't have an answer for the media why they wouldn't want to run it. That makes zero sense to me.
Ryan, from a legislative point of view, is there any laws that you think we should change to kind of eradicate predators and stop this issue? Is there anything we should change legally?
I mean, I guess a question back at you is do you think that criminals follow the law?
That's true.
I mean, it's the same thing. I don't have any strong opinions on gun rights or abortion or all these topics that certain sides have these strong beliefs on. I'm kind of neutral on a lot of things, but when it comes to guns, for example, you could take guns away from people, and you can make them illegal. And the law-abiding citizens will hand in their guns. The people that don't follow the law are going to continue to have guns because criminals don't follow the law. They're criminals.
Yeah.
So now when somebody breaks into your house and your law-abiding self doesn't have a gun, well, what are you going to do? So it's just,
So you think it's more about protecting yourself?
I think it's more about protecting your children, monitoring their devices, and I'll get more into that later. But I think that preventing it is the number one thing that you can do, which isn't always preventable. So don't think that I mean it that way. But just knowing about a lot of these things and knowing where your children should be avoiding or how to monitor their devices is like 80% of the battle. The other 20% is, I don't think there's a law you can put in place that's going to stop these guys. Like we have the death penalty in Florida for these guys in certain cases, and they're still meeting up with Dustin every other night. So if not every night, like they're not scared of that. So, I don't think there's any law that's going to change these idiots' minds.
So all of this is a lot, Ryan, for your mental health. And I kind of know this, researching cases myself and like seeing some horrible things. Like, how do you take care of yourself with this, and does it ever slow you down to see so much darkness online?
So that's something that I've actually been exploring lately. Is there's what I've been told, and I'll get into this as well. Is I owned 3 mental health and substance use facilities in the past, and 144 beds approximately, and I had a lot of therapists working at my facilities. I dealt with a ton of doctors. I dealt with a ton of people that worked in this space for mental health disorders. So you'd think that I would have the resources to at least know about this topic and to act on it, right? So dealing with this for about 5 years now and seeing the worst of the worst and hearing the worst of the worst all the time, literally every single day, I'm good at compartmentalizing my emotions. I grew up, pretty rough. I had a pretty rough upbringing, and I've done it my whole life, and I used it to make myself stronger. Like I use it as almost like an accelerator for myself. And in this case, though, I just compartmentalize it, and I feel like it doesn't affect me. But then I have some personal things in my life that I don't want to talk about on here, but I have talked about with some other people in the field, and I asked them, like, does this same thing happen to you, or do you have this physical issue happening to you that and you don't know why? And and they said yes, and it was like, in a way, nice to hear that it's not just me, because I went and got blood work done, and I got all these things done just to see, I was really hoping that there was going to be something specific low in my blood work, right? And it wasn't. It was perfectly fine. So I was like, wow, this must be a subconscious thing that's causing trauma that is affecting my I guess relationship or I don't even know I don't want to go into the details of it, but it's affecting my life, and I'm not thinking about the actual topic actively, but my subconscious mind, according to the people that I talk to, is what's getting me. And it's so hard for me to comprehend that, because your subconscious mind, you have no control over, at least directly. And I'm in my journey right now of trying to figure out what to do about it, because I don't feel like it affects me, but I know that it is affecting me based upon physical problems. So yes, it is affecting me. I just need to figure out how to fix it.
Do you struggle with nightmares?
I don't dream very often, but when I do dream, it is bad.
Really?
Yeah. So it's kind of rare that I dream, but yeah, that's a good point. No one's ever asked me that. It's just more of a night terror situation, which I never had before. But it's not always night terrors about this topic. It's just in general, it started to happen.
What would you say is the most disturbing thing you've seen while hacking?
While hacking overall, or are you talking about just in child crimes and trafficking?
I guess maybe on the dark web.
I mean, I would say the most disturbing would have to be, it's better for me to just stay on the one topic. So yeah. I'll say the worst things will probably be, I don't want to go into detail about these things. It's like the horrible conversations or videos or just, here's one I can tell you about. So, a story that I heard from somebody else about somebody paying to watch a live stream of a baby getting their skull stomped on and crushed, while the baby was alive, of course, and people paying to watch that live stream on a website, which I don't think it was a dark website. It was just a live stream. But yeah, I mean that one, for whatever reason, although not related to crimes, was just as disturbing, if not more, to me than most. So
that was on the clear web?
It was a protocol on the clear web, yeah.
How is that possible?
I mean, you can put anything you want on the internet, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was if I can remember correctly, it was an RTSP stream, which is like what cameras use in most cases, like an old school surveillance camera would use to view footage. But like I said, I didn't directly see this happen. I just heard about the story.
Yeah.
So I can't give you every detail because I wasn't there.
Is the dark web really as scary as the kind of internet portrays it to be? Or is it like how would you describe it?
I would describe the dark web as a buzzword that people created about something called the onion router, which is a different segmentation of the internet where it's just, you're visiting websites that are not accessible unless you're connected to that specific network. They call that the dark web. You can go on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram on the dark web, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be the dark web version of Instagram, Facebook, and it's just going to be behind a different network. But it does allow you to visit websites that you can't visit in your normal browser. They end in .onion, and that's some of those websites are informational sites where there's nothing wrong with them at all, and then there's other ones that are extremely horrible, like with child-related stuff. There's hitman services, there's organ harvesting sites, there's SIM swapping for phones, and things that are less vile but still crime. And some of them are fake, some of them are real. It's hard to know what's real and what's fake on some of these sites. But what is real, like the drug marketplaces, some of them they sell weapons and also photos of children and situations, and some of them don't allow for guns and that. Back when the quote unquote dark web was becoming popular and Bitcoin started to become popular, I think it was like 2011 or 12, if I'm correct. There was one called the Silk Road, which was the first of its kind. It was a dark web marketplace where Ross Ulbricht, who's currently serving 2 life sentences plus 40 years, he's about to be pardoned though.
By Trump.
Trump, yeah. He's about to be pardoned, which is hopefully the right thing to do. But from what I know about Ross, and I know his mom, I'm in contact with his mother. What I know about him is his goal was never to create a marketplace to, have any type of violence or anything of that sort. It was to create a free marketplace where people sell what they want to sell. And it turned into the largest drug empire in the world, basically. So who knows what his real intentions were? I couldn't tell you that. But I can tell you that since Ross went to prison and the Silk Road shut down, it's only gone downhill in more graphic content and people being more open to allowing weapons and even bombs, crazy stuff that are being sold, grenades, like stuff that Ross would never have let happen on the Silk Road.
Do you think it's like a multi-billion-dollar industry?
Oh yeah.
Is that where countries get their drug imports from, like from the dark web, or?
I would say that you can buy a kilo of fentanyl on the dark web for a pretty affordable price in comparison to what you would imagine. And people cut that into their drugs. They're selling it to people on the street, including these young teenagers that are all hooked on fentanyl right now. And they're people are dropping left and right because it's cheap and they're buying it online. So I also have a different opinion on that though. So being into drugs myself as a kid. Yeah. And we could talk about that in a second, but I know quite a lot about drugs. I did pretty much every one of them. I think the only drug that I haven't done, other than if you count research chemicals, is PCP. I've pretty much done everything else. And
is PCP? It's not bath salts, is it?
No. It's like a hallucinogen that makes you feel like you're strong and you can this just something I just never ran into. I probably would have tried it, but. The dark web wasn't around. There wasn't dark web marketplaces when I was a kid. I had to go to Kensington, every single day, which is a bad area of Philadelphia, that there's drugs being sold on every corner. And that fentanyl just wasn't a thing back then. Like if you were gonna buy fentanyl back then, you'd have to find an old person that was prescribed to fentanyl lollipops because they couldn't swallow pills, or fentanyl patches. Like that, it just really wasn't much of a thing when I was younger. But now these kids are buying Xanax, they're buying heroin, they're buying coke, they're buying Adderall, and they're buying all this stuff. And a lot of it's pressed, or oxycodones, they call them blues, and and they're pressed pills that are either fully fentanyl and you don't know what the actual dosage is, or it's you're getting a tiny bit of the real drug and the rest is fentanyl. So like if you Google search cocaine fentanyl overdose, you're going to see article after article of people dying from snorting cocaine and dying from an opioid overdose. It's like, it's because it's cheap, it's accessible. And I don't know if that's another country that's, China being a huge producer of fentanyl, which I believe there's a lot of analogs. The ones I know of are like carfentanil, butyl fentanyl, acetyl fentanyl, and just regular fentanyl. But I'm sure there's more of them out there. It killed my best friend. It killed almost everyone I grew up with, literally, except for 2 people, like no exaggeration. Half of my dad's side of the family is dead from it. Like fentanyl has killed almost everyone in my life. So it's easily accessible on these dark web marketplaces. So I don't know. I kind of went off on it a little bit there, but that's I just have a strong feeling against using fentanyl. And then to end off that topic, like I said, I owned 3 mental health substance use facilities, or rehabs for other words, with all levels of care. Like if you realized how many hands I've shaken and said good luck or God bless and shook their hands and found out, not even days later or just days at the most, how many people died because they chose to go back on the streets and overdose from fentanyl. It's sickening and sad, and to just, talk to a parent after they lost their child over and over and over and over again because, somebody did something they didn't even realize they were doing, and you can't turn back. It's like with addicts, they do understand, but they can't stop, is they do a drug, whether they snort it or they inject it or smoke it, they do whatever. Once you nod out from, let's say, an opiate overdose or an opioid overdose, in this case, you fall asleep and you don't wake up. If you don't have people around you checking on you and checking your pulse and seeing if you're still breathing, you're dead. Like, you don't get a chance to realize you're overdosing. You're already asleep while you're dying. And you're not just, like a lot of people think heroin or fentanyl overdose is your body being poisoned. It's your body goes into what's called respiratory depression, and you're almost drowning while you're sleeping. So your brain's involuntary motion of breathing is interrupted by opiates, and even more so with the very strong ones like fentanyl. And while you're nodded out asleep, your lungs stop functioning. So no oxygen goes to your brain, and you suffocate to death while you're unconscious. Although what makes me feel a little better about it is I know they weren't awake or suffering from it. If they didn't feel it happen to them, that like it wouldn't make sense if they were unconscious to feel that happen. So they died peacefully, I guess. But just to think about that, knowing that every single time that you take a drug that you buy off the street, or online, but more so off the street, you could be in a situation where you're just going to fall asleep and never wake up again. Like it's a risk that, like, I know sounds like common sense, but really think about that,
Ryan, how many times have you administered Narcan?
So not as many times as you'd think, only twice in my life, because I had nurse practitioners and nurses and like people, like the clinicians that were working at the facility. If someone was overdosing and someone snuck drugs in or something, they would handle those situations. So I didn't have to deal with that as much. When I was younger, there weren't as many opiate overdoses. Like when I used drugs, I'm 31 now. I stopped using drugs when I was 17 years old. So when I was younger, there wasn't really a ton of people spraying Narcan up someone's nose or hitting them in the leg with the Narcan needle. But I can tell you a story of my best friend in the world that, I did use Narcan on. And if you want me to tell it to you, I will.
Of course.
I talked about it on the Sean Ryan show, and I'll tell you again, but his name was Ricky. He was, my best friend. I spent every single day with him for a long time. And he worked for me and every business that I ever started. Not only did we hang out every day, but we worked together every day. And he was clean. He wasn't on drugs. And I was always close with his mother and father. And so Ricky's parents call me one night and they say, hey, can you go check on Ricky? And this is about 8 p.m. on a Friday. And I was like, yeah, sure. Cause he didn't answer them all day, I guess. So I was like, all right, he's probably with some girl, or maybe he did do drugs and he's nervous to call his parents. He doesn't want to get, like reamed out by his parents about it. So I'm not thinking anything about that. Right. So I show up at his house, his condo, and I pull into his parking garage and I see his car is parked in there's a spot where you only park for a short period of time. Like if you have, like, let's say you went to the grocery store, his car was parked in that spot and it's 8 p.m. and I know that he hasn't talked to his parents since the morning. So I wasn't instantly thinking that was a bad thing. I was thinking, oh, he just got back from somewhere. He's fine. He's here. So I go upstairs. His door was open. I unlocked the door. I walked in. I looked to my left and I see his his face, like he had his body tilted all the way to the right, like that. And he had his pants on. He was sitting on the toilet, but with his pants on. There was a needle. There was some, capsules, which in Florida, there's capsules for heroin. Pennsylvania, where I grew up, there's bags. And he was unconscious. So I go over there and I'm smacking him in the face. I'm like, Ricky, wake up. I'm trying to wake him up. And he's got his face on the vanity. And he's sitting on the toilet with this horrible image I have in my head. And I call 911 immediately, but I didn't have Narcan in my pocket. I didn't think there was anything. I didn't think he was overdosed or anything. So I get back in the elevator because I'm in a condo, like I said, go back downstairs, run to my car, as fast as I can. I grab the Narcan. I'm still on the phone with 911. Somehow the call doesn't end while I'm in the elevator. I get back into his bathroom. I hit him in the leg with the Narcan. The 911 operator tells me to bring him onto the floor and start giving him CPR until the ambulance gets there. And I move him from the toilet onto the floor, and his face is still in the position that it was in on the vanity from what's called rigor mortis. And I find, at that time, I'm in denial. This is my best friend. I hit him with Narcan. I'm waiting for him to wake up. I'm giving him CPR. He's got stuff coming out of his mouth. I don't want to get into the details of that, but just know that, his face, how it was on the vanity, all pushed up sideways, was in the same position, as well as his legs from sitting down when I brought him to the floor. And I'm giving him CPR, still in denial, not thinking that he's I know what rigor mortis is, or rigor mortis, whatever you want to say. And I was in complete denial of it. And then eventually, I realize he's not waking up. The ambulance shows up and they're talking. I'm out in the hallway and I'm losing my mind. I'm not a very emotional guy. When it comes to getting, real sad or happy, or I'm just a pretty monotone person. And I was bawling my eyes out crying. And I'm hearing this ambulance and police officers. They're not joking about him, but they're just talking like it's a normal day, joking with each other, while they're cleaning up my dead friend, and I'm like, this is I don't know. I'm losing it in that condo hallway. After all said and done, they roll him out in a bag, basically, and the detective comes out to ask me some questions, and I answer all the questions. And instead of the detective calling his parents, the detective asked me to call his parents. So I call my best friend in the world's parents to tell them that their only son is dead, and I don't understand why that detective thought that was a good idea, but I did, and I'm glad that I did, because I was the one that was able to break it to him, not some stranger that didn't care. But just thinking about what was going through that detective's mind when he thought, let's just get this devastated kid to call this kid's parents and say their child's dead. I don't know. That's just a ridiculous thing. But my
How
point.
old were you?
This was, I think I was 25.
25?
Yeah,
And
25
how
or
old was
20. He was the same age.
Okay.
No, maybe I don't remember. It was around that time. I'd have to. I don't know the exact age. One of those two. But sorry, it's just a tough topic for me. I'm trying to hold it together on that one. But like I said, I lost almost everybody in my life to this stuff. That was one where I personally went in there, hit him with Narcan. I still remember hearing it was an auto injector Narcan, where when it's when you undid it, you pulled this tab off of it. It would say insert needle. And then when you did, it would say 3, 2, 1, injection complete. That's what it said. And then when I was in the hallway, I guess this is to alert EMS that Narcan was administered, but it went doo-doo, doo-doo. And I remember hearing that every like 10, 20 seconds or whatever it was. And like that image and those sounds will just never leave my mind. And it just, the thought, you know, and I still was running a treatment facility, and just hearing the person die after, you know, dead person after dead person, and people's families just losing their children left and right. In current day, fentanyl is more of an issue than I believe it was back then, but I could be wrong on that. I think it is, but I don't know. And I just really want people to understand how dangerous it is to do anything. Like, if you're going to do drugs, like if you're really dead set on doing drugs, get them from a doctor. Like, I'm not saying to do drugs, but buying them off someone on the street, like, you're asking to die. Like, if that's what you want, that's what you're going to probably end up getting. Like, you know, I recommend nobody does anything. It's not worth it. But
would you say most things are laced with fentanyl from your experience?
I don't think most, like, I don't know. I actually don't know. Like, I know a lot of stories of all kinds of drugs being laced with it, but I don't know if most things are. What do you think?
Or I guess, like, not most of the drugs you get, but like, is every type of drug, like cocaine, weed, like, susceptible to being laced with fentanyl?
Anything can be, yeah, because you can smoke it, snort it, or shoot it up. So you can put it in anything.
Okay.
Yeah. Or swallow it, of course.
But to your drug experience personally, you did heroin when you were 13.
Yeah.
For the first time.
No, not for the first time. I started injecting heroin at 13.
When did you do it for the first time?
Probably like 11, 12.
Okay. So how did you kind of get to that point?
So I grew up in a pretty rough situation. You know, I was kind of the outcast growing up, and, you know, I looked different. I dressed different. I hung out with different people. Like, you know, just meaning like I had long black hair and piercings and tattoos at like 11 years old. Like, it just wasn't a normal thing.
You had tattoos at 11 years old too.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Not like I do now, but I had tattoos, and, like, you know, the kids at my school knew that. I just was very different. And I got bullied a ton, and, you know, just never really felt like I fit in. So my default there was to hang out with older people. And I felt like I could get along with older people better. And the older people I chose to hang with were just not really the best of people. And at least in my brain, they were the coolest people ever because I was having fun with them. They wanted to do things. They had cars. There was no limitations for me. And it felt like the right thing at that time. And then I got introduced to other drugs, and I started going to raves, as I'm sure you saw on some other podcasts. I started going to raves in Philadelphia. And that was a ton of fun for me. I really liked that. I wasn't into like the whole dancing aspect, but I definitely liked going and doing ecstasy and listening to the music and doing ketamine and coke and all the other drugs you do at a rave. Well, doing that for quite a while as a young, very, very young kid, which is crazy. I have a picture of myself I could show you. It's like, it's so weird to see me as a kid on drugs, and even myself looking at it. Somebody tells me like, hey, you don't like the feeling of ecstasy when you're coming down. It's a crappy feeling when ecstasy is considered a stimulant. When you start to come down, you feel really bad. And meaning like when the drug's starting to wear off, you start to feel bad. And someone said, if you take this, they called them 30s. When I was younger, they're called blues now, oxycodone, 30 milligram pills. If you take one of these, it'll make that feeling go away. So I tried that, and it got rid of the feeling completely. So I was like, okay, well, now I'll just take one of those after I'm done partying for the night. And I would do that. And then I started to realize, well, I kind of like the feeling of these oxycodones better than I like the ecstasy. So I started just taking those. But then the raves weren't as fun anymore because, you know, what are you going to do while you're nodding out or, you know, all on a bunch of opiates at a rave? It's just not the same. You don't get the same vibe doing that. So I kind of fell in love with opiates at a super young age. And the problem is those pills are not cheap, and not everybody had a ton of them. So, and I was a kid, you know, so trying to find them was tough. But what wasn't hard to find was heroin or crack, which is the two things that were popular in Philly at that time. And I was more into the heroin. So I would get on what's called the Market Frankfurt line or the L. And I would take the L to Kensington and Allegheny every single day, which is a corner in Philadelphia where there's, you know, it's basically an open air drug marketplace. And me being a young child, but looking a little bit older than my age because of the hair and the piercings and blah, blah, blah. Like you'll see why these dealers weren't like, what the heck is this young kid doing here? I mean,
Yeah.
not that I believe they have much of a heart anyway. I don't think that I think I would have, at least had some questions, but I don't even remember anyone questioning my age back then. I would buy heroin. It was only $10 a bag, and I was snorting it at this time. So like in the beginning, I was only snorting it, and that doesn't mean it's okay, but there was no fentanyl in it, and I wasn't really at as much of a risk of dying. I could have overdosed, but way less of a risk of dying as it would be current day. And heroin is pretty cheap in the beginning. Like I went from spending a fortune on these pills to spending $10 for an entire day's worth of not being sick is the better way to put it, not being high. And then I started to do more and more and more, just like most people know this story. Eventually it ends up where you can't even fit that amount of powder in your nose anymore. Like seriously, you just can't fit it. Like you need so much heroin that it's crazy. So going to injecting it, which I remember being at this party, this guy, I was prescribed to a ton of Xanax from this one psychiatrist, a whole nother story. So I'm already not thinking properly. Guy at a party says to me, or if you want to call it a party, but he tells me, to try shooting up. And he has these bags, and I remember it being a Darth Vader logo, and that's how the dealers would stamp their stuff. So the addicts would be like, have you tried the strongmans, which would be like some guy flexing his muscles or something on the bag, or the Hulk, or like you have a picture of the Hulk. In this case, it was Darth Vader. So he asked me, about shooting up. I remember him pouring out the Darth Vader bag into a spoon. And since in Philly the heroin is powder, you just pull it through cotton. So like we would take a little piece of a cigarette filter off the back of just a filter, take like a little pinch, turn it into a ball with your fingers, pull the drugs through that piece of cotton, which is what would essentially get rid of the hard particles, and or at least try to in that case. And then he shot me up, and I remember feeling my whole body. And I don't want to glorify this, so I'll just stop there. But it was like the best feeling I've ever felt in my life, and that was the beginning of an absolute disaster of the future teenage years that I not only had to go through myself, but I put my mother through, my grandma, my grandpa, the people that cared the most about me. I put them through a lot. One thing I didn't do, I was never disrespectful to them. I never stole from them. They never didn't know where I was, but I was definitely not controllable. Like I wasn't listening to anything anybody told me to do. There was no grounding me. I was just going to walk out the door. But I tried my best to be as respectful as I possibly could, and I am proud that I was able to do that, because I know a lot of addicts screw their whole family life up. I didn't do that, but I'm blessed to have my mom in my life and my grandparents. I lost my grandfather, which I don't even want to get into that, because that was like my second, or that was basically my father growing up, and I lost him not that long ago now. But losing him was tough, and my mom's like my best friend, and I put her through a lot as a kid. A lot more than I'm even saying. I have a lot of half brothers and sisters from my dad.
Okay.
But my mom and dad are not together, and
are you close with your father?
Sometimes yes, and other times no. So it's but no, I wouldn't say, like, sometimes we communicate more often than other times is the best way I could put that one. But I have 6 half brothers and sisters, that 2 of which I am close with, like that I talk to frequently. But I am, I have a bunch of cousins on my mom's side that I look at as brothers and sisters as well, and I'm close with all of them.
Your family growing up, did you guys have a lot of money, or?
No. So I didn't come from any sort of money. I didn't come from any business background where, like a lot of people think, because I drive a Lamborghini Aventador, I have all these successful companies, I did this, I did that. Like, you're only seeing what came from it. You're seeing the positive outcome. You're not seeing all of the times I failed. You're not seeing all the businesses that I've started and lost money, or didn't work out, or the trials and tribulations, in between. So a lot of people would just instantly assume that I have rich parents, or I came from some upbringing where I was taught some of the things that I learned. And I my mom worked her butt off as a bartender for most of my life, and my dad, wasn't really around. My grandparents worked, at Catholic Social Services in Philadelphia, and my grandfather worked for a cemetery somewhere outside of Philadelphia. and they weren't making a ton of money. So I didn't come from really much money at all. And I'm trying to keep the personal details out, of their stuff. But, it was pretty rough where it came from.
In school as a child, were you ever noted by teachers as particularly gifted?
No. So not in, if you're asking in a way of being smart. It was, so I was always looked at as, when I was younger, I had an IEP. And do you know what an IEP is? It's an individual education plan, which means that either you have a learning disability because you can't retain information. Mine was for emotional support. So based on some of the traumas and situations I was in, the school mandated that my mom, show up and go through these things and put me in these special classes because I had, some traumatic events in my life, like from, because everyone's going to instantly assume that I was because of the space that I'm in. I actually was not. Other things that have happened in my life that I've never talked about that why I ended up on an IEP in school. And I was singled out in certain cases because, I've always had a different way of thinking and teachers definitely saw a lot in me that I wasn't showing my full potential because I was doing heroin and many other drugs. It just was hard to
Did everyone know you were doing heroin?
Eventually, yeah. So when I got arrested a million times as a kid after that fact, I didn't get into any of that. But after I got arrested, and I was on probation, going to these rehabs and inpatient programs and alternative schools and all these things. Yeah, everybody knew I was on drugs at that point. But prior to that, no. I mean, it wasn't long before I got caught doing dumb stuff. Let me show you real quick a picture of me at I couldn't have been older than 15 in this picture. I don't have, actually I might've been 13. And I also wouldn't, I wouldn't be questioning if he was buying heroin or not. So.
This is you?
That's me.
At 15?
13 or 15.
Jeez, yeah. Man. You look like a rocker.
Well, to me, it looks like my lips are, it looks like I have lipstick on in this picture.
Huh.
My face is so sunken in, you could see my nose was pierced. I just, I was a mess. I was an absolute mess. But I'm 31 now. That was basically half of a lifetime ago. And I feel like, I either look younger or about the same as I do there, just not as much of a junkie. So, that's, I don't know. That's why I'm not super surprised that people sold me drugs and hung out with me as a kid, because I didn't look like I was that young.
So the getting started into hacking, was it to make money, to buy drugs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get into hacking just to buy drugs. I got into hacking because I was in the industry and in the communities, for other words. And then I was fascinated with computers already. I used the hacking abilities to fund the drug addiction, but that was not why I got into hacking. Because the normal addict just robs people and steals money out of cars, or robs stores for baby formula and resells it to other stores for half price, or gets food stamps and sells them for half. I mean, that's the normal approach. For me, it was, the internet, affiliate marketing, to be more specific.
You made $30,000 at 14 with affiliates.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I made a lot of money doing affiliate marketing through. I mean, I have big spammer tattoo on my arm.
So you just send spam emails and spam text and...
Yeah, a combination of spam emails, spam text, media buys, finding vulnerabilities in websites, black hat search engine optimization.
What vulnerability would you find in a website that would allow you to run an ad on it?
So I'll give you one example. Let's say someone was running WordPress, which is a very common content management system, and there was a plugin that was vulnerable to a, remote code execution vulnerability. I would try to fingerprint that WordPress site, so try to find as many of them as I possibly could, and then throw my pixel, or whether, my affiliate, it's called a creative, throw my creative on their site, and then maybe I would set I would go into var log and then check out who was logging into the server. I'd figure out an idea of which IPs to blacklist, make sure that when those IPs visited the site, it didn't load the creative, but then any other IPs that loaded it, they would see that the ad would pop up on the site.
So you got free ad space on websites?
Oh, many times, yeah, over and over and over.
Is that still a thing, you think?
Oh yeah, I'm sure people are still currently doing exactly the same thing. And I wasn't the only one doing this. I was part of a community called Digital Gangster, which was a forum back then. Which great friend of mine, YT Cracker, like the letter Y, T, and then Cracker. He's a nerdcore hip hop artist. He's an awesome guy. Bryce Case Jr. is his real name. He was a good friend of mine. He was an administrator of Digital Gangster. He created the site. I was an administrator, but didn't create it from the ground up. We all were spamming and hacking and doing black hat SEO, and a lot of us.
What is black hat SEO?
Like utilizing Google's algorithm to at the time to rank websites that were not supposed to be ranked, just using methods that wouldn't work current day. But I'm sure there's still black hat SEO methods that I'm just not aware of. But yeah, that Digital Gangster site was a combination of hackers, affiliate marketers, addicts, and just trolls. Like it was just a really good spot for me as a kid. Like I loved it. And a lot of those people ended up being my mentors, one of them being Whitey Cracker or Bryce Case. And, if without those people being in my life and spending time with me to teach me methodology, not just about marketing, about hacking and cybersecurity and even programming for that matter, I would know nothing because I don't have a college degree. I dropped out of high school going into 10th grade. I don't have any crazy, educational path to talk to you about. But I could tell you that without those mentors, I would know nothing. And then the trial and error that you learn in that process, you learn a ton. And as long as you know the questions to ask and you know where you went wrong, you have a pretty good head start. So something to think about where it doesn't matter what field you're getting into, whether it be cybersecurity or building houses, like whatever it is, just make sure you know how to ask the right questions. And that's my number one piece of advice I'd give anyone, because that's what I did.
So you haven't always used hacking for good?
No.
When was the transition?
Whenever the statute of limitations was when it ended. So I don't know. I mean, I was young. Either way, I know for sure I was young. I know I didn't do it like as a conscious, sober adult. I wasn't messing with people or trying to mess up people's lives. I know that for a fact. I just don't remember the exact age. I was never officially charged with a cybercrime, although I did have a ton of police encounters. I've had a ton of FBI encounters. I had somebody swat my house before.
You hacked a hospital, right?
Oh no, you're talking about an electronic medical records platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not a hospital. That's a medical records platform that hospitals or rehabs would use. So they came in for a training. And this is actually a cool story. So they came in for a training at one of my rehabs, and I'm in the room and I'm young, and they didn't even know that I was the owner. They thought I was just one of the employees there. They're training the clinicians on how to use this medical record software. And I started talking to them at the end. I told them I'm the owner. They're like, they were respectful to me, but they didn't know who I was at that time. Like they didn't know I was the owner. So of course they just weren't paying much attention. So at the end of that conversation, I explained that I'm a hacker and or a cybersecurity professional is what I would actually say. I'm just on camera, so I'm saying the word hacker, but whatever. I tell them that. They said they just got a $40,000 penetration test done, and a penetration test is just like when you get a bunch of hackers to try to find vulnerabilities in your system or company. They paid $40,000 for that. I said, well, do you mind if I take a look? Because I'm about to use their medical record platform for my rehab. I want to make sure it's safe. So they leave. And they're confident because $40,000 was just spent on it being secure. And before they even got back to their office, I sent them support.zencharts.com. It was just a picture of my face. So I subdomain hijacked them, basically, is what the vulnerability would be called. And from that point on, they hired me as a security consultant to help them, tighten up things that this $40,000 pen test company couldn't find for them. And the years go by, just me staying in contact with those guys at ZenCharts, which that company's been sold. It's over with now. But I get involved with those guys after I sold the rehabs. And then we started a company called pentester.com, which is a cybersecurity company. And you can put in an email or a website. It searches over 150 billion records. The light scan, which I can show you on camera here, will give you some of your passwords, your usernames, your phone numbers, addresses, which you can check that for free. Like people can go to pentester.com, type in their their email address or website, just hit enter. You don't even have to sign up. You just get a preliminary report there. Or if you pay the $19, which is what people are paying for lunch basically nowadays, you pay $19, we'll not only show you 150 billion records that you can search through for your data, we also will find your public records that are out there on all these data broker websites and automate the removal to the best of our ability. So like, we're offering it nationally for the United States and internationally. The price is the same though. So $19 for one account, and then an additional $5 per family member or employee that you add in for data removal. But you'll be the first to know about like a data breach that happened or an account that pops up with your email address, or sensitive info like your credit card, your license plate, your address, any detail that you put into our system, you'll be alerted that it was in a breach, and you can take action on it from our dashboard. The last thing about Pentester, which is what, like I said, ZenCharts, the people from ZenCharts, the company I hacked, the medical record platform, are now my partners in Pentester. And that would have never happened unless I hacked their website when I owned the rehabs. Yeah. So it was just a pretty cool process. But just a real quick thing about Pentester is you can even search that 150 billion records, which is a great way to find out everything out there on yourself that's on the dark web. And then you can do reverse facial recognition on yourself, or someone's face that you have explicit permission to run it on, and find where photos on the internet may be, including photos of you, your face, or a loved ones. But that's a whole topic. I'm not trying to turn it into a sales pitch. I'm just trying to explain.
Yeah, I will say, guys, that Ryan asked me the email that I used to sign up for a website we both knew about, and he was like, "Oh, you're still using this password?" and then read out one of my current passwords. So, yeah, probably won't be including that in here.
Right. So something. So basically, what that segues into just something that a lot of people should understand that is common sense to most, but not to all, is that you should not be reusing credentials across websites. You should, and if you are reusing credentials, obviously change it. But a lot of people, what they do is they'll see, okay, my password that was password 123 got breached. Now they make it a capital P and they put an exclamation point at the end, and they think that that's good. Well, that's the first thing a hacker is going to think to try as well. So my suggestion there is to use a password manager. So there's two options. What I like is one called 1Password, which is just the digit 1 and then password. And it's a password manager that will generate passwords for you, store them, and then you save it on your phone, whatever. And you can use it anytime you want. Or you could just use Google Chrome. Google Chrome has a password manager built into it that will generate passwords, store them. And as long as you have a device that has Google Chrome on it, you always have access to the passwords. The benefit, and that one's free. So the benefit of that is you don't you never have to worry about somebody guessing a password based on a database breach that happens. And if it's just one of those things. It's actually kind of convenient too, because as soon as you go to a website, you can autofill and log in, and you don't even know what the password was in the first place.
I thought one time you said, why should you never use autofill?
So that is another thing. So autofill, you should. Yes and no, because autofill can be dangerous, because you can, when you type in your name, and then it says it'll say Jack Neel, and then it'll tell you the rest of the fields it wants to fill out. Well, not everybody pays attention to that. And if you were trying to be malicious, I have a demonstration and a video of it. I have an autofill form that just says, what's your name? You put your name in there, and I then steal all of the information that autofill was going to fill out, but you just don't see it happen because the fields are hidden on the website. It's kind of hard to explain that though without you seeing it. Yeah. But yeah, autofill can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know what you're looking at. That doesn't actually apply to 1Password. 1Password, it has its own autofill that is not going to be vulnerable to that specific thing. So
that makes sense. So 1Password's probably the way to go.
Yeah, it's it's a paid option, but not everybody has the money for stuff like that. So Google has a password manager built into it.
You talked about SIM swapping earlier. What is SIM swapping?
SIM swapping is when you take somebody else's phone number away from them with the intention of logging into their accounts as them. Like if I wanted to SIM swap you, my goal would be to, let's just say I have a contact at AT&T. Let's say that's your provider. And that contact allows me to activate your SIM card on my phone. So now I have your phone number on my phone, and then I request a reset of your password for TikTok. It comes to now me instead of you, and now I'm authenticated to your account. Maybe that's your TikTok, your bank, whatever account I want. Yeah. Well, Coinbase, depending on your security settings, that you may need more than that. Maybe you need Google Authenticator, which a SIM swap's not going to get you. But it's very frustrating, and the only way to fix it is to reach out to the provider and have them switch it back. So it's a tough one, but people, charge $10,000 to $15,000. Some of the insiders that work at these carriers that are willing to do a SIM swap for you, they charge a lot of money to do that. And I'm sure there are people that do it for cheaper, but the stories I've heard of, they make a fortune doing it down here in South Florida.
How dangerous is TikTok?
I think that TikTok could be great if the parent knows how to monitor the child correctly. I think their algorithm,
guess not for children specifically, maybe from a data perspective.
From a data perspective, I couldn't tell you all the details of what they're harvesting because I don't know every detail, but I do know they got caught at some point with, stealing your clipboard data, meaning like whatever you had copied would just be stored in, and that's why I think Apple introduced, I don't know if it's why exactly, but I know they did introduce it. If you notice when you go into an app, it'll say, do you allow this app to paste? Which you didn't even try to paste. It just is taking your clipboard data. I know TikTok did that at one point. I know that they try to take as much demographic information as they can because these are social media platforms and people wonder, like, how do these companies make money? I'm not paying to be on there. Well, if you don't know what the product is, then you are the product. And that's what TikTok is you are the product. Whether you're a content creator or a consumer of content, they are using you to monetize their ad content they're getting paid for. So a lot of people think they understand that concept, but these algorithms are way beyond my comprehension as well. They know, like, how many times have you thought about a topic and then you didn't even say anything about it, you didn't Google it, you didn't nothing, and then it just pops up in your feed the next day. Like, there's a lot of money and a lot of bright minds that are coming up with these methodologies.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if the algorithm's based on you or you are based on the algorithm. You know what I mean? I
think, that's a cool way to put it. Yeah, who knows?
Do you think they're tracking our key logs?
Key log meaning like just like what you're typing into the app?
Yeah.
I would say it's a possibility. You could confirm that, though, by proxying the traffic. So, like, let's say you connect to Wi-Fi in your house, you set the proxy address to be your computer, you run something like a web debugger or something like that, you're going to see all the traffic coming in and out of the phone and, from the app to the internet. And if you type a character and you see that packet being sent to the server, then we could confirm it literally. Like, we could do it right now with the laptop. But
I believe you brought some other cool devices
for us to
check out as well.
I brought a bunch of cool stuff. I got something cool. It's not really hacking related, but kind of an ancient artifact in the realm of Bitcoin mining. Ever seen one of these? This is called a block eruptor.
Block eruptor.
Yep. So that was the first USB ASIC miner, so application specific integrated circuit. And that right there, at one time, you could make hundreds of Bitcoin a day with just that. You plug
hundreds
that into
of Bitcoin a day?
Hundreds of Bitcoin per day, because that was mining at faster rates than any graphics card of the time, any processor. That little thing right there, current day, is like 300 to 400 mega hashes per second, which is nothing in comparison to what is out there now.
Yeah.
But that thing was insane. And what people would do, they'd buy them. I think they were like $40 a piece, and they'd buy a ton of them. They'd buy like a whole crate of them, and then they'd get these USB docks, and they'd plug a bunch of those into it, connect them to a pool, and then just make a fortune. In comparison to now, you're not making millions of dollars with these now. You're gonna make maybe a penny a year with that thing. But that was let me take it out so you can see it. But
yeah.
Like this thing, if I plugged it into my computer right now, it would get so hot that you could feel the heat just putting your hand near it, and you can leave it like that. It's built for the heat.
When did you first start mining Bitcoin?
Probably 2012.
2012?
Yeah, like early. I have a Bitcoin tattooed on my side.
So how much would that have been at the time? $100?
No, when I started, it was like $2-3 a coin, maybe at the most.
You were mining Bitcoin then, okay, $2 to $3.
Yeah, but I was more interested. I wasn't really as interested in mining Bitcoin as I was in just acquiring Bitcoin. But acquiring Bitcoin, like this thing was more like I couldn't couldn't get this. Like, there was no way people were buying these before I could even have a chance to buy them. And like, I really wanted one back then, but I have one now, and it's just more just a memory type of thing. But Mt. Gox was the only way at that time where you could even buy Bitcoin through an exchange. And it wasn't like what you guys know about now, where you're putting your bank account information in, you're verifying your identity, all of the different steps that these exchanges make you go through. Mt. Gox, you would get this piece of paper that would have 2 numbers on it, and you'd go to a Walgreens or a CVS, and you'd do what's called a MoneyGram. You'd give them cash at the register, and you would, along with the MoneyGram, you'd give those 2 numbers. And I remember the company's name was called ZipZap, and you would send the money to ZipZap in New York, and then within a couple hours, the Bitcoin would be transferred to your wallet. So Mt. Gox you could then trade it on Mt. Gox back and forth like an exchange nowadays, but just what it was back then, it was just significantly cheaper, and Bitcoin wasn't worth as much, so that was the method of buying it. Then there was this website called Local Bitcoins where you could meet up with a stranger, essentially, hand them a bunch of cash, transfer Bitcoin, and then you leave. And that was how you bought Bitcoin back then, unless you had a friend that had it and you trusted them. But that was the 2 ways you could do it without having the whole trust factor. They're both gone. Mt. Gox had some crazy stuff associated with it, where the guy went to prison and stole a bunch of money, and it's a big mess. But that was the only site. And then there was the second site that I was on was BTCE, which I think was a Russian-owned crazy website. But they got breached, and they're actually in our database now on Pentester. So it's a lot of the older stuff just isn't existing anymore.
How much Bitcoin have you mined in your life?
It wasn't more about are you talking about mining with miners or mining with a botnet? Because there's 2 different.
I guess total, yeah.
Yeah, I that's something I never gave a real answer for.
Because you kept a lot of it?
No, didn't keep a lot of it. I don't have a ton from any of the crimes or any at all from things that I did in my past. But I did explain on a podcast that I had a crypto botnet and how that worked, which I never really got into detail about how that worked, but I don't mind explaining. There was a very popular forum back then called Bitcoin Talk. And on that forum, when you signed up, you became a newbie member. And there were these other users that were senior members that you were more trustworthy. So if you clicked on their profile, and you could go through the threads that they were posting, you could trust pretty much what they had to say. But if you're a newbie on there posting links, like a newbie according to their ranking system, nobody was trusting you or clicking your links. So I thought to myself, well, I have this exploit called a Java drive-by, and at that time, browsers would allow you to run these Java applets, web applets in your browser. Imagine going to a website, and it says on the top of the screen, it'll say run once or run always. And then when you click that button, your computer gets infected with malware. Well, I had one that was an undetectable Java drive-by that as soon as you went to the website, there was no button pressing whatsoever. It would automatically infect your machine. So on Bitcoin Talk, I couldn't just post as a newbie saying, hey, go check out this website. And one of the websites was, I said that it was a browser miner, because mining wasn't super easy before. It was something you either use the Bitcoin client to do it, or you had to go through a little bit of a technical process to get a miner set up. So when I was on that forum and I said I created this project where you could go to browser miner or whatever, and you put in your wallet address, you press go, and then it mines Bitcoin in your browser. People believed it. They clicked it, and they weren't getting anything. But what happened was I was waiting for people to go to the site, and then I accumulated some senior user accounts from them going to the link. Now I started posting as the senior users in my thread saying, this is awesome, thanks, and all these, positive things to validate that these websites were legitimate.
You had access to their accounts, their passwords.
I had access to their entire computers. So I not only their accounts, but full access to these senior members on Bitcoin Talk. And that went on for a while, where I just had control over all of the accounts that were commenting on it, and I, infected a ton of machines, and there was a lot of things that I'm not proud of that I did in that process. But
did you learn anything about the origins of Bitcoin through that process?
The origins?
Yeah.
No, I don't know who created Bitcoin. No.
You don't have any idea?
I mean, there's a speculation for sure, but I don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody does. I mean, and if they do, I don't think we're going to find out about it anytime soon. But I mean, that's a whole different topic with Hale Finney or Finley. I can't remember his last name, but there's a whole theory there. And then there's a guy, Craig, who claims that he created it, which is not true for sure.
The Australian guy?
I don't know if he's Australian or not, but he claimed that he created it, but then the font he used in his white papers didn't even exist when, like, it didn't exist yet. So it was just clear he's not him. And then another thing, the NSA created the same encryption that Bitcoin uses. So it's just a correlation, but who knows if it's actually the NSA that created Bitcoin. It's kind of up in the air. So I don't really know. I don't think anybody does.
Do you think that's the most likely theory in your head? The NSA?
Much as I'm sure that would be great content, I don't think so. I don't think it's NSA.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And then, that wasn't really a hacking gadget, though. That was more of a minor, and a lot of, I did a lot of stupid things as a kid, hacking related. And, like I said, I'm not proud of a lot of the things that I've done, but something that I can say with confidence is I didn't do anything that physically hurt anybody or permanently hurt anybody. I definitely did things that I'm not proud of, though. Yeah. And I've changed a lot as an adult. I was a young kid, a young teenager, and I guess a young adult at one point, because you're a teenager till you're 19, right? But I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking back then. I guess you could say at one level it was smart. Like I did things that would be considered to be smart, but not morally correct. So I don't know how smart that is. Do you believe it's easier
to make money in an ethical way or an unethical way?
Absolutely. I think that if I knew what I knew now, I would be telling myself that I'm an absolute moron for doing what I was doing, because doing things the right way and doing things ethically, I've made tenfold the amount of money. And I'm not risking going to jail. I'm not looking over my shoulder. I don't have to worry about who I'm talking to or who I'm doing, whatever I'm doing with. I don't have to worry about anything like that anymore, because everything I do is on the up and up. Back then, I not only was worried about the dealing with drugs and all these people at all times, but I had to worry about the individuals I was associated with on the internet. And if they knew who I was, it's called operational security or OPSEC. Like, do they know who I am? Like, am I using an alias to talk to this person, but he talked to me before and he knows that I'm using an alias because I'm a dumb kid and I made a mistake. Like, who knows, But thankfully, nothing came from that legally. And it's been long enough to where I can talk about these topics. I just don't feel comfortable talking about some of them because it's in the past, didn't hurt anybody permanently, and I want to leave it at that. You know?
What other devices do we have in there? One I'm interested in is knowing if there's a camera in this room that we don't know about.
Yeah, I got a bug finder in here somewhere, and this is a cool one. Looks like a mint container, right?
You're actually not joking with me.
Yeah, open it up.
This is a mint container. It looks like icebreakers. Can I open it?
That's the small side.
Yeah, gotta go do the big one. What is this, Ryan?
So that is an ESP32 that has the ability to replicate network names, SSIDs, and shut down, Wi-Fi networks. So or devices on Wi-Fi networks. So let's say I wanted to disable your Ring cameras or any wireless camera and all of your iPhones in your house. I could plug that thing into this power brick over here and just start dropping people off the network.
If they're connected to the Wi-Fi.
If they're connected to the Wi-Fi. But for example, with Ring cameras, they, other than I think some new ones, but most of the Ring cameras that exist rely on Wi-Fi solely. So if, for example, I walk up to your house and I de-authenticate, which is what that thing does, your Ring doorbell or your Ring cameras, there is no evidence I ever was at your house, and there's no local storage on that device that will have a recording of me being at your house. So just that little thing alone right there would make me essentially a ghost when it came to your cameras. That's just one.
So you turn off everyone's cameras theoretically, and you wouldn't be caught.
Yeah, if they're Wi-Fi cameras, yeah. And then the Ponagachi I made a video on. This it does essentially the same thing where it deauthenticates all Wi-Fi devices at the same time. It tries to knock as many as it off. It looks like a Tamagotchi to some degree.
Yeah.
But what it does is that device's entire goal is to eat Wi-Fi networks. So like if you remember the old Tamagotchis from, you may not even, but when I was a kid, they were a thing. You fed this little cartoon that was on a little device like that, but circular, like an egg shape, and you fed it, and if you didn't feed it, it would die.
Yeah.
That thing, it eats Wi-Fi networks. So you have to keep it alive by feeding it networks. And what it does is it deauthenticates the same way that other device does, but it tries to find what's called a four-way handshake. And that four-way handshake is something that you would load into your computer later on and try to throw a bunch of passwords at it until it cracks it. So you don't have to be in the location anymore. Now you know that, let's say we're at this studio, we see that there's 10 secured networks. That thing's captured 8 of the 10 handshakes of those 10 networks, and now I can try to crack one of those 8 from home. And then I can come back here because I know the password from cracking those handshakes. But that thing, it lives off of eating those handshakes.
So could you crack a password here?
I mean, I could try. I have this laptop. We could try. If we'd be breaking the law, you know.
Maybe not this time then, unless it's not that bad.
I mean, it's federal crime. Anything related to computer hacking is technically federal.
Or do you?
Yeah, I made that one, but I didn't create the Ponagotchi. I made that one.
Huh.
Like, I didn't create the concept.
Are these things commonly used by people, you believe?
No, I mean, you got to be a nerd, you know? So,
it's like the people who can do them likely
yeah, but most
can
people
make money some other way.
That's exactly right. So, like, that's why I try not to get too technical, because I don't want to teach the intricacies of how you can do some of this stuff. And then criminals that would otherwise never have a clue or even put the time into learning how to do it, they could watch a video from me. I might say, like, well, you need to buy this thing, and this thing, and then install this firmware, and then just smash it together, because this is 3 different devices on top of each other. And now you got a device that's dangerous. I mean, I just don't want to be the guy that teaches them that.
What do we have here?
That is an RFID or NFC detector. So when I'm, like, let's say I'm trying to break into your house or your office or your hotel room, I need to know if I should be walking past you reading NFC, which is one protocol, or RFID. I can go up to the lock with that, and that will literally flash a light, because it uses the frequency, or it's electromagnetic frequency, basically. It comes out of, or the radio that comes out of these devices will make the lights on that flash, which I'll show you the 2 different lights. But there, as you can see, there's no battery in that. So the actual lock on the door itself will illuminate that. That way I know what I should be stealing from you, what frequency to be on.
Okay.
That's more of a detector rather than a stealer.
Got it. Can you scan an actual hotel key, or would it have to be the lock itself?
Yeah, the hotel key. So not with that. That thing's not going to light up from a hotel key, but the lock will light that up.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is how we would detect the camera in the room. And it's going to go crazy with all the equipment in here.
Yeah.
I'll turn it on anyway. This is good for Airbnbs and finding, like, you know, it has this little thing here.
This finds hidden cameras in Airbnbs.
Well, anywhere. Yeah. But, you know, it has this red filter, and then there's a light. See how this red light comes on? And you look through this thing, and if I look at the cameras, if you look through it, you'll see that there's a little, like, you can see where the camera is. Like, look into the camera lens. You can see that it's pretty evident that it's there. I mean, I can see it without the lens. So if it's a tiny little microscopic camera, you'll see just a little red dot.
Yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah, and I could just see it without the lens. You don't even need that filter, really. But what we could do with the, I'll show you with...
Is that a camera up there?
Where? Yeah, you see it?
Oh, because it's making
You can literally see it. That would be something cool to get a close-up on. Because that we're looking at it through something that's covering it.
Would you care to... Or I don't know if we'll be able to...
Yeah, if not, it's all good.
I can just get it off my phone, no worries.
That is pretty cool. That's a great example.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's actually the best example ever.
Yeah.
I'm jealous that you have that, and I don't. So now this is going to go nuts, but let's just say I want to look for a microphone, right? Should be. I'm trying to keep the sense of... Yeah, there we go. So, like being near it. And then if I try to get away from devices... Yeah, it's just probably not going to work in this room.
Yeah, because there's so much stuff. Yeah. Huh.
But it's bugging out. But yeah, these are like, I think they're like $20-$30. They're worth having. I mean, I think the most valuable feature on them is going to be for the finding hidden cameras.
Have you found a hidden camera that you were surprised about?
No, I haven't, but I want people, because a lot of people go to Airbnbs or hotels and they're scared and they're looking around with their eyes, and it's like, all right, well, just buy a device that will make you feel a little better. This thing's going to detect electromagnetic frequencies. It's going to detect electromagnetic fields. It's going to detect GPS, and it also uses light to find these hidden cameras. So it's just a good thing to have in your pocket. Like, I personally am not too concerned about it, but some people, they really worry about that, especially women. It's like they're renting a house from somebody. How do they know he's not some creep? That happens all the time. And if you look in the news, you see it happens a lot. A bunch of stuff is at one time. Let's do it quick.
Did you bring these for the interview, or do you always?
I always have them.
You just always have them.
Yeah, and then this is the lock picks, and then this, we can get this thing to...
Oh, that's a Flipper Zero.
Yeah, Flipper Zero. Most people do know what these are, thankfully. Where's that little reader at? Right here. So let's say I'm walking up to a door that has NFC. If I put it up there, see how it lights up blue? Lights up blue for NFC. And then if I switch this to RFID and read, now you see how it's red?
So what's the difference between those?
They're two completely different frequencies and protocols. So
Okay.
let's say I'm trying to steal your key fob, and let's say you have an apartment somewhere. I go up to your door, this thing lights up red. Now I know to be reading on RFID when I walk past you and steal your key. I'm reading on NFC, I'm not going to pick up on your key.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's what this thing does. It's basic but useful.
What's the most interesting thing you can do with the Flipper Zero?
I mean, if you want to get into the key hacking stuff, I can show you, like...
That might be hard in here.
I could show you what it looks like on a screen. That could be kind of cool.
On a screen?
Yeah, like I could show you when you click your key fob, what happens.
So this is the key to my apartment.
Okay. I'm going to show you deleting it too, so you know that I don't have it. But I'm going to assume that it's RFID at first. Now it's in read mode. So if I put it... Yeah, so see how it says generic HID procs, and then you have, obviously the numbers there. If I do this and I hit save, I can save it, or I can do emulate. Now if I go to your door, I can get into your apartment right now.
Just from that?
That's it. Yeah, now I can save, which if I hit save, I can save this Jack Neel's house, and then go to your house later in a month from now and get right into your door.
What's interesting is...
I'm not going to save it. Look, delete it.
If I lose my key and they replace it, and I find the old one, it still works for my door, but not like all the amenities. So does that mean there's like two frequencies to it? Does that make sense?
No, that means that they're removing that key from their database for the other stuff, but they're not doing it for your door.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah,
So
did
that just give you
I-
full access?
That gave me, if that key has full access, I have full access.
Okay.
But you saw that ID that was on the screen?
Yeah.
They put that in their database, in their key system, like their lock system. It's and then like they are not doing it for your door in your house, for the important one, but they're doing it for the amenities, which is odd.
So do you even use a real key, or do you just Flipper Zero all your...
Well, for things that you, like, I have them all stored on here for things that I can get into with a badge or with a key.
Like, can you get into your Lamborghini, for instance? Can you get it started up?
I can't get it started up, but I can, I've showed an example of that on my own pages of how I can jam the frequency that the key fob is on, capture some valid, because they're on rolling codes, which a rolling code just changes every time you click the button. But if I jam the key, that frequency, then I capture a couple unlock attempts, then I can capture on the key fob's range, and then as long as I'm jamming on that range, let's say you're standing here, I'm jamming here, and the car is here, I can capture all the unlocks you're pressing, and then later on, since your car is not going to react to you pressing the button because I'm jamming on it, but I'm receiving all of it, which I'm going to show you on here how that works. And now I have, however many times you clicked unlock, I have that many attempts to unlock your car later, even though it's a rolling code system. Because I'm jamming, and the car is not saying that code's been used before because the car never saw that code. Like how a jamming, this key fob right here is is using a rolling code. This is a Lamborghini key fob. Every single newer age key is going to use a rolling code, which means every time I click this lock button or unlock button, it's going to generate a new code every time. So for me to record that with a flipper or with a hack RF, which I'll show in a second, and then go and try to use that later, if my car was here, my car would know that that's a bad code because it's already been used before. If I was jamming on the same frequency as this key fob, the car would never receive that code, which means that I can use those codes later as long as I'm recording with them. So let's say, like I said, I'm standing here, the jammer is here, and the car is here, and then you're, right here trying to, unlock your car. I'm capturing all those attempts, and then later on I can go and unlock your car. So I'll explain how that works. So with the key fob, I'm going to press this, and you're going to see it's either going to be 315 or 433, which is what all key fobs are. 315. So it popped up on the screen, just took a second. And then I'll show you because I'll show you because it's a lot more visual on the hack RF. So I'm going to put this thing on 315 megahertz, and you can see that there's a bunch of blue coming down the screen here. And if I hit lock, see how you can physically see it happening on the screen? Unlock, unlock, lock, lock. And I can save this.
Are they different frequencies?
Since it's a rolling code, each time it's going to be a different code.
Okay.
Since my car's not outside, these codes will work. If I went home right now and replayed this, if I just stopped this, saved it, and replayed it, it would unlock my car because the car didn't know that these codes were ever used.
Got it.
So that's how a rolling code, it's called a roll jam attack. You can do the same thing with a flipper, but this is more of a graphical way to look at it. Like if you want to click the button from even over there, you'll see, watch.
So this is unlock.
Yeah.
This is lock. Huh.
Yeah, so that's the roll jam attack.
That's really interesting.
I mean, there's so much more.
Have you ever pranked your friends with this kind of thing?
Yeah, I play with my friends all the time.
What's something...
That's a cool one. That's just a device to detect, like if someone's wearing a bug or if there's electricity coming from a device. Another like bug sniffer type of tool, but like a lot more precise.
What is a bug bounty?
A bug bounty is a service that a company is going to allow you to hack their systems with things that are in scope and out of scope. Like you can hack this, but you can't hack this. And you submit that report to the company, and the company will pay you for finding that vulnerability. It's a great thing for hackers, that want to get a little wild and want to start attacking things that they're not allowed to usually touch. Bug bounties have allowed that, for that to be a thing without you going to prison for it.
Yeah.
So bug bounty's cool.
Have you done bug bounties before?
Yeah.
What's the largest bug bounty? You get paid, right? If you succeed something?
Yeah, but sometimes you do bug bounties with teams too, which is, like people will work on a project together. And, so if you're counting that, there's some pretty big ones. One was a credit with a big company. I'm not allowed to disclose with bug bounty. There's disclose and non-disclose when you report these bugs. And one specific company, I had an option to either take cash or take credit for using its services. And it was a pretty large chunk of money.
Like over six figures?
A little bit, yeah. Gotcha. Just a little bit over six figures.
And how long did that take you to?
I don't remember the exact time frame. Over a week, though.
It's about a week?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it adds up.
So
maths, though. So.
Yeah, you made six figures in a week discovering a bug within a certain company.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's cool stuff. But don't be thinking that you can just jump into bug bounty and make a ton of money, because there are many hours and many bug bounty hunters that have tried and made nothing. So there's a lot of people that think like, oh, this is a great way to make a ton of money. The way to make money in bug bounties is get involved, start doing some of their public programs, and then once you're around long enough, you'll start getting invited to what are called private programs. And those ones have way more vulnerabilities because there's not a bunch of people just trying to attack them all day with the same tools and same methods. And you'll make a fortune when you start to get into the good private programs. But that's a topic for another time.
Go ahead and show me another one of those devices.
This one is a smart key logger device. This is called a land turtle. This is a cool one that I like a lot.
Land turtle.
A land turtle, yeah. So basically you plug this in to USB. You plug an Ethernet cord into it, put it in the back of their computer. They'll have no idea what this thing is. They'll still have access to the internet, but as soon as this thing is plugged in, I'll have a remote connection from anywhere in the world onto their local network at their house. So this will connect back to me, and I can control their local network. And if they have devices in their house that I can pivot onto, I can use this device to do it.
There's you can get onto someone's laptop, and then you could get onto their phone if it's connected to the same Wi-Fi?
I mean, it's not. There's no guarantee you're going to get onto their phone, but you have a better chance of getting onto their laptop or computer than you would a phone. But the whole point of this is to have a mini computer implant in somebody's house or office without them having any clue that it's there, that you can control from anywhere in the world.
And what can you control with that?
I mean, this is a computer, so anything a computer can do, I can run commands on this to try to enumerate vulnerabilities on that network.
Can you get access to their webcam, of course?
If I got access to their computer, I could get access to their webcam, yes. Yeah, which it depends. Every system is different.
Yeah.
So, but, if let's say a more realistic scenario where looking, using one of these, which I've shown before, but I'll show you again, is like this I showed on a different podcast, but people really need to know about these because they're dangerous. I have a little orange thing on here that I'll take off because, so you can see that's not permanently on there. This, to any person, if you look at this, Jack, tell me that's not a real iPhone charger.
Yeah, I would think that was an iPhone charger.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to match it with a real one, I don't know if you have one with you, but that looks
pretty
the
identical. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can plug it into a phone
So you could plug this into a phone and get power from it, or you could plug it into a computer and get power. But as soon as this plugs in, I'm trying to get this orange thing back on there. As soon as this thing, and the orange thing is there because you'll lose it because it looks the same as a regular charger. But when you plug this part into the computer, inside of this, literally inside of here, is like a little computer as well, and it emits a Wi-Fi signal that I can connect to from my phone or a laptop from a distance. And I can type keystrokes at 800 characters per second. So I could run whatever payload I want at a distance on your computer, and you could be charging your phone with it at the same time. This is a very dangerous device, and I have a bunch of them with me of all different types: iPhone, Android, laptop.
Can you connect it to iPad?
Yeah.
You'll try it?
Yeah, if you want to.
I've seen you run this before. So do I need to open anything?
Yeah, in this case, I don't know your PIN, so I can't automatically unlock it.
Yeah.
But if you let me plug it in, I'll show you how I can run a payload. All right, so now it's plugged in. But you can see that it's not, I don't have the other side plugged into anything, right?
Correct. Oh. So it's just one-sided.
Just one side needs to be plugged in, yeah. And now you see on my network, I have a network called OMG.
Huh. Yeah.
So I'm going to connect to the OMG network. I'm just going to, that looks like a charger. You could be charging your iPad with it, but, watch this. So 3, 2, 1.
Thanks for having me on the Jack Neel show. That's crazy, man.
Pretty cool stuff, right?
So you can control this whole iPad just from
as long as I have access to it. Like if I don't know your PIN, then I'm kind of stuck at that point. But I have, as soon as
can you run
I
anything that will like get the PIN, or is that a whole other process?
No, I don't have any payloads that will get the PIN from this cable. But I can't say that will never happen. That just isn't something that I have with me or the ability to do right now. This is, by the way, just a part I want to include for the people.
Yeah.
This is called a data blocker. This company, doesn't matter. I don't know who this company is, so it doesn't matter which one you buy. But this data blocker itself, if you plug in your USB to this and then you plug it into a computer or your device, this stops any data from going through. So you can spend a couple dollars on this. Doesn't matter what the brand is. Just make sure you get one if you're worried about that attack you just saw on the iPad. Because more importantly, on a laptop or computer, that could be really dangerous for you. So this stops that from even happening, from being even a possibility for a couple of dollars.
Yeah. What's the most interesting thing you've done with ChatGPT?
With ChatGPT, I guess creating my own GPTs, and you can customize your prompt so it knows a little bit about you. So my prompt is pretty specific. I can ask ChatGPT anything I want, and it will give me some really verbose output. Like I could say, give me a payload for a reverse shell and write malware that includes it. And it won't say like, due to my ethical guidelines, I can't help you. It will give me anything.
So you jailbroke ChatGPT? basically.
Yeah, well, there's a ton of ways to jailbreak it, but my specific method is my own. So it has not been patched, and I use.
And you don't share it because you need it, probably.
Yeah, I use it. I mean,
Yeah.
ChatGPT is super helpful to me personally, and it helps. It saves a ton of my time. And that jailbreak, yeah, I would much rather not argue with the thing about ethical guidelines. So yeah, of course.
What's the best prompt hackers use that you could share?
Well, there's a website for just all different prompt bypasses. So you can, I can give you that website if you want. I just don't remember it off the top of my head, but I can give it to you, and it's updated. Like, do you want me to find it?
Sure. Yeah, if you know it.
Yeah, here it is. Jailbreakchat.com.
And that gives you prompts that currently work.
Let me see when the last one was. Oh no, the site's down. Oh no. Let's see. There's another one. So I guess I'll give you a different piece of advice. Look for because that website's down. One that you could look for that people update a lot is called DAN, DAN, and it stands for Do Anything Now. So just Google search ChatGPT DAN GitHub, GITHUB, and look for the most recently updated DAN prompt, and that will unlock it to some degree.
I'm curious if you know about this. What does TSA do when they scan your devices?
So in the United States, they usually don't give me a hard time. When I leave the United States and I'm dealing with customs, there has been some incidents where they go through everything, because I bring this whole bag with everything. And surprisingly, out of all of the countries that I've been to, the thing they care the most about is my laptop, which if you see on the bottom of my laptop here, this is not from my own doing, which makes zero sense to me at all. You can see that it's dented there, and then there was a sticker on top of one of these screws where my warranty was actually voided from the border patrol going through my laptop. Like, what am I going to fit in this laptop? It makes no sense to me whatsoever. They didn't go into any of these bags or try to look at any of the gadgets or ask me any questions. They opened up my laptop. Like, what am I hiding in here?
Do the machines they have take your data?
It's never happened to me, but I'm sure that they do. I mean, there's devices out there like Cellbrites. Are you talking about?
I guess I've just seen that, like, when they scan your phone, that they can get access to some data.
Yeah. So if you unlock your phone, or you have an older phone, for the most part, then Cellbrite, you can put the phone in the dock, and it will just pull all of the data from your phone: text, calls, photos, contacts, sometimes even deleted data or artifacts, they call them. And, certain agents and I'm sure countries have those Cellbrites on hand. But if you have a newer phone that's up to date, they need your PIN.
Yeah, gotcha.
So keep that in mind.
It's interesting. Always get a PIN on your phone.
Keep a PIN on your phone, and you don't need to give the PIN up, especially when you're in the United States. You have some freedom here.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice that I've ever received was, if you're the smartest person in a room, then you're in the wrong room. And that's what I truly believe to this day. So when I surround myself with people, and I don't feel like I'm learning from them or they're positive people, I try to change where my trajectory or who I'm around, because I think about it like this: if you hang around a bunch of people that sell drugs every day, or they're committing crimes every day, you're going to turn into to some degree what they are. Or you hang around drug addicts every day, you're going to end up being a drug addict. If you hang out with alcoholics, you're going to be an alcoholic. Well, it works the same with positivity and good things. So I try to surround myself with people that are not only intelligent, but if I can, wealthy, and those things have benefited me a ton. And I believe it's just the atmosphere, and what are you going to gain from being the smartest person in the room, other than people being impressed with the stuff that you have to say? Not much. Eventually, there's only so many times people can tell you how smart you are. That's so I would recommend, if you personally feel that way and you feel like your friends are all dumb and you just happen to be the smartest one, make some new friends.
It's interesting. You've kind of been you seem to be a bit of a secretive person when it comes to your finances. What's your reasoning for that?
Because to be honest with you, it's personal, in general. And then secondly, I think that that I volunteer for Sentinel Foundation, and I create all of my content, as I don't monetize any content for child safety, or even on Monect. If someone Monects me for and pays to talk to me about child safety, I donate that money to a charity. And like I said, it's not for a pat on the back. It's because I have personal reasons for it. I think that if I start to talk about certain dollar amounts, it's more like bragging rather than me just saying, hey, I'm 31 years old. I've been successful financially since my early 20s. I've been, I drive my dream cars. I live in a very nice house. There's not much that I want for in life, and I grew up with nothing, and to some degree, absolutely nothing. And I know what it's like to not have anything, and I know what it's like to have something. So for me to tell you how much money I made doing this and how much is in my account here and that, like that just sounds like bragging to me. I want to motivate people to be in the same position without committing crime, start a business, and that, you'll figure out for yourself what having, quote unquote wealth is. So I think that's my main reason. I don't think there's any like actual agenda to it other than it's just kind of like I have what I need. And if you can't tell, like I don't need to tell you the number, you just you know I got it, I guess, for other words.
Do you value money?
I value it to some degree. You need it to live. You need to pay your bills. You need to pay to eat. You need to have experiences, to travel. But there's a point where money is no longer going to make you happy. And I get that. I get it's easy to say that when you have money, but like I just said, I've gone through life without money and knowing what it's like to struggle. So I could tell you from firsthand experience that once you hit a certain point and you're not worrying about money anymore, you start to worry about who you're around and being alone and worrying about who to trust and who in relationships, who you should be dating and, what businesses you should be starting, who you should affiliate yourself with. It becomes the more money that you have, the more expensive your issues become and the more complicated your issues become. So it's all relative, it's just a weird thing.
Who's the most impressive person you've ever met?
The most impressive person I've ever met. I'm going to go with, and this is probably not as cool of an answer as you're thinking, but I'm going to go with my grandfather. I think that he's the most impressive person I've ever met, and not only because he's family, because he passed away, and if you told me I'll give you $10 billion to tell me something negative about him, I couldn't even think of a single thing in every year of my life. I couldn't think of even the slightest negative thing to say about that man. Not one thing. So... and so much more that we could go on for hours, but nobody wants to hear about that. It's my own personal life. But yeah, my grandfather is the most impressive person I've ever met. And he was a great man.
Was there something specific that you think he taught you?
He taught me everything as a child, prior to the drugs. And, he just was there for me and my mom was there for me, but there for me when nobody else really was outside of my family. And he did so much for me that he did not have to do. He went out of his way in so many scenarios that I'll be forever indebted to him for, and I know that he wanted to do them, but I want to be like him when I have a child. I want to be able to do. I want to be a tenth of him if I could. So yeah, I love him to death. Yeah. And So on a different topic, real quick, just I know we're ending here. A lot of people ask a question and I don't read my comments because comments, are all like 99% of them are positive, but then you see that one negative comment. It's like somebody's talking crap or whatever. And I learned, just from other content creators to just not read the comments because it'll get to you, So one thing that I see though, sometimes because you load in an app, you see the top comments that just happen to be there. And people will make a comment about like my jaw or my teeth. And something that most people don't realize is it's not that I can't, it's not that I'm like talking with my mouth not all the way open on purpose. I have a thing called TMJD, which is a joint dysfunction where I cannot open my mouth wide. So for the people out there, it's not about you hating on me that I care about. I just want you to understand why my mouth doesn't open all the way when I talk.
Yeah.
I know it has nothing to do with anything we just said, but it is one comment that doesn't bother me. I just want people to get it because it seems like nobody understands, and it's so obvious that I have TMJ. But people don't get it.
Yeah, my mom has that pretty bad
as well. Does she have like the lock or?
She's not like locked, but like it's like pretty consistent for her. I'd say like once a week it happens, but I get it too sometimes. But it sucks that
it never goes away. Yeah, it's permanent for me. Like that's as far as I can go.
Have you had it since you were young?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Man. Yeah, and then I did a full mouth reconstruction with these aren't veneers, these are crowns. So like I did a real redo of your whole mouth, which is not cheap. And the goal of that was to fix my bite, which could have potentially fixed the TMJD. It's not TMJ. TMJ is the name of the joint. D is for dysfunction. And it didn't help or make it worse. It just didn't work. But, I ended up with very white teeth out of it. But that was the only benefit. So hopefully one day I can get this fixed. But for anyone curious to know why I talk the way that I do, it's because of a dysfunction in my joint.
Cool, man. Is there anything else you want to tell the audience about what you're working on now, future?
I want parents to know, like I say all the time, I want parents to know that it's very important in 2024 and future years that it's not like when you were younger or when I was younger or when you were younger, Jack. Phones, devices, iPads, anything that is connected to the internet to a child is like having a third arm. It's an appendage of their body. It's their connection to the world. So when you take that device away from them, for whatever reason you're taking it away from them, you're taking away in their brain their connection to the world. That was not what it felt like for me as a child or what it would feel like to most older people. So it's hard to relate to that. But you have to understand that your kid could be talking to strangers on apps like Jack and I spoke about earlier, Fortnite or Minecraft or Roblox or any of these games that match you up with a stranger. And your kid needs to understand that they can tell you about somebody being inappropriate, even if they feel like it's going to get them in trouble. They know they're not going to lose their device in that process because you could potentially prevent a tragedy if your child feels comfortable coming to you with these topics. I don't have a kid, but I've seen enough cases to know where the common denominator is, and it's that. So I would highly recommend that as one. And number two is to create some sort of monitoring, regimen in your life with your child. So I'm not sponsored by this company, but I really like their app. It's called Bark, B-A-R-K. You install it on your kid's phone, and it looks for, not only predatory behavior, but it looks for bullying. It looks for self-harm, and it will alert you of that when it happens. And then for the things it cannot monitor, you plug the phone into a computer, and it backs the phone up onto the computer, and it will scan it and look for those things as well. So Bark is just an app that I really like, and like I said, I make no benefit whatsoever being even shouting them out. But any type of monitoring software is better than nothing, and I highly recommend you do it because the world is an absolutely vile place, and not everyone, but there's a lot of these weirdos out there. So just remember that. And if anyone has any questions, you can reach out to me on Minect, on Instagram, and I'll be making content, like videos and short clips and maybe some longer clips in the future, for the foreseeable future. I don't plan on changing it. And if any topics become a reality or something I run across seems to be important, just know I'll be posting about it right away. And that's the most that I have to say at this point.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, man. Everyone, this has been the Jack Neel Podcast. This is your guest, Ryan Montgomery at 0 Day.
Yeah, the number 0, D-A-Y, not the letter, not Z-E-R-O, the number 0, D-A-Y. It's a very different person on that other one.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Peace.